Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We have new faces today. It's always exciting to see.
Okay, you got it, you got it.
You're not. I just wanted to thank you guys for coming in, having lunch with us and participating in today's presentation. I'm Trish Christensen. I'm the president and CEO of the Modesto Chamber of Commerce. And I'll just have Jolene introduce herself.
My name is Jolene. I am the sustainability coordinator here at the Modesto Chamber of Commerce.
I love when you don't see that. And my co-chair here, Lyndon, I'll let you kind of take it off.
All right, thank you. I'm Lyndon Coffin with American Recycling and co-chair along with Trish to the Stanislaus Green Team. We appreciate you coming today. We're going to do this every month for the rest of the year, third Thursday of the month. I think we're going to stay with the hybrid, right? You can show up in person like you have. Thank you very much. Or come into the Zoom area. And so we meet here every third Thursday to talk about what's going on in the community, learn about sustainability programs. If you want to get on the list to present, contact Jolene, Trish, myself, whoever you can think of. Probably start with Jolene, it's probably the best bet. First thing we do is usually introduce ourselves, tell us who you are and who you're with. We'll start in person first, and then we'll kind of point to the people on Zoom. So George, congratulations, you're number one.
Thank you. George Isaac, I'm sales director for Repsco. We're a manufacturer in Riverbank.
Perfect.
And a member of the Green.
Yes, solid member and a solid attendee every month, I should say.
My name is Megan Miller. I am with Truist by Merrill in here in Modesto. It actually used to be Sanford Place, but they have new ownership. So I'm the new sales and marketing director there. So we just recently joined the chamber, looking forward to having our ribbon cutting hopefully in the next couple of months. So we want to start getting involved in the community, especially with seniors, etc.
Fantastic. Thanks for coming.
I'm Courtney Ligorio. I'm a commercial lender with Farmers Merchants Bank. And I've been a part of women in business recently with the chamber. So I'm just trying to get out and attend more chamber events.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Gavin Klein. I'm one of the field representatives for Congressman Donald.
My name's Abby. I'm a representative with Assembly Member Waddell Hayes.
Perfect.
Awesome.
I'm Mike Meridian, Peace Mine Pest Control and on the chamber board and oversee the water.
Fantastic.
Jesus Nunez, Assistant Outreach Manager for Valley Water Project.
Kurt Clausen, he's Valley Water Collaborative Executive Director.
Fantastic.
Hi, I'm Nathan Gordon, sitting with us for the office.
Awesome.
Oh,
Thank you.
exciting.
Help me out, guys. Is there somebody on? I can't tell who's on.
Jolene, you have the mouse. So no, there's not.
Oh, there is.
Or just the two? Okay. I
Yep.
was just making sure we don't miss anybody.
We're gonna keep going though, because we're recording. So
Okay.
we're gonna share it.
How many here are for the first time for the Stanislaus Green Team? I see a lot of new faces. This is fantastic. All right, tell a friend. We want to fill this room. We want to fill the Zoom room. Again, third Thursday of every month. So spread the word. And if you can, you want to get on the list to present, we appreciate that. All right, I'm gonna get right to it. Our presenter today is Perry Clausen he's the executive director from Valley Water Collaborative. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Okay, the trick for advancing.
Oh, there it is.
And you're gonna have to go to the Zoom site and screen share that, Jolene, or it won't be.
Part of my speech I forgot to, by the way, while we're getting ready here is please silence your cell phones. I just had to do that myself. I always forget. So appreciate that. Thanks.
Green button, no. The left, top left, right below the blue screen. Left, and down. That one. Yep.
And share.
Yep.
I feel your pain sometimes. I have my glasses on.
Okay, did you start the recording too?
It's on, it's right on.
Okay. Well, thanks for inviting me today and giving me the chance to talk about Valley Water Collaborative. You may not know it, but you're going to be water educated this morning, and probably more than you ever wanted to know about all of the groundwater. That's part of why we're here and why I'm here and why this program's in place. So let me first start out talking about nitrate. Nitrate is a chemical compound that is found in nature. It's been around for as long as man, as long as the earth has been here. And you think about it in a basic sense, when there is a meadow or any kind of area that used to be underwater, when that vegetative matter breaks down and becomes available for other plants to grow, they grow and turn green on nitrogen. Nitrogen is a basic building block of life on Earth. So when nitrogen goes through its chemical process, it turns into nitrate. And nitrate is a very leachable form of nitrogen. It's the breakdown product that comes from, as I said, a breakdown of organic matter. And then I'll tell you the industrial components here in a minute, or where it comes from industry. So there's standards set for nitrate in drinking water by US EPA, World Health Organization, all these health agencies around the world, as well as California and the Regional Water Board, have a standard of 10 milligrams per liter. 10 is the number. You refer to 10 quite a bit. And nitrate in the background level with no human activity can be in the 2.5 to 5 milligrams per liter range. If you get into an area like a swamp where it's been degrading organic material, it can be 20, 30, or 40 milligrams because it's a natural occurrence. So it goes into groundwater, and depending on the aquifer, it can be accumulating in that aquifer. All right, that's there, just click it. Okay, so it goes into groundwater and it goes into the drinking water supplies of especially the Central Valley. Central Valley is a unique place in the country in that we get the vast majority of our drinking water for cities from wells, from groundwater. You go to the East Coast, Midwest, the vast majority of their water comes from rivers and it's treated and cleansed, purified, and circulated to all the cities. Very few areas even on Earth, have huge groundwater aquifers that are main suppliers of drinking water. There is some drinking water comes out of the rivers that are around us, but a very small amount of it. And in Sacramento, they have a water treatment plant where the city of Sacramento gets surface water. But all the inner valley cities, they're all groundwater. They all pump out the groundwater. And when this area was settled back in the late 1800s and 1900s, part of the reason this side of the valley was settled is because they could just poke a hole in the ground in 20, 30 feet down, there's groundwater. So they had a water source, even in the years when it was droughts and there was no water in the rivers. So that really helped develop the east side of the valley tremendously over the last 100 years. The west side of the valley, another different story. The water table is down 400 or 500 feet, even deeper sometimes, and it's very salty. And so this part of the valley and from here, from Sacramento, really Sacramento all the way to Bakersfield, there's great groundwater aquifers. So when the cities pumped water out of the ground, starting in the 60s, they had to test their water and look for any contaminants. And the laws were passed that said you cannot, cities, serve water that has any contamination. Nitrate was one of the first. There's bacteria. There's other natural known elements, arsenic and others. They, by law, cannot put that in the drinking water system of the city. No matter how small that city is, if there's more than 3 people on that water system, you are a regulated water system. You got to test the water. Mobile home parks, any kind of public park, gas stations, any of these places, they can serve water with any contamination. However, domestic wells, you live out in the country, you live away from the city, you got a well, there's no regulation, no requirements for anything on that well. Now, new construction, when you build a new house and a new well, and nowadays they make you test that well to make sure it's pure. When a property sells, they have to test the well for a number of constituents. If you go out and buy a property that's got a well, there's a county ordinance that says you have to test your well for nitrate and bacteria primarily, not any of the other things that are going to be possibly be in groundwater. So you think about, this is going to be very relevant to what I'm going to be talking about for the program. Okay. It's gotta be down here. Okay, so measurements of nitrate have been going on for over 50 years. In this area, because of a lot of different geographic characteristics, we have a highly contaminated groundwater aquifer. So the red that you see here, here's Modesto, there's Highway 99, Turlock, there's the Merced River, here's the San Joaquin River, Lower Sierra Nevadas. So what has happened over time is from about settling of this area to probably the 1960s, maybe the 1950s, wastewater was dumped in the river, in the sewer water. It didn't go anywhere but in the river. Or if you were inland away from the river, it just went in these big areas that settled. And so the nitrate from human waste has been going into groundwater since from about when people came here to the 50s. And what happened in the 50s is they started thinking, hey, this is crazy. This could have bad stuff in it. So they started the treatment. And then US EPA was formed in the 70s, and they really got strict on drinking water. But nonetheless, in that big history of time, there was a lot of nitrate contamination. The other thing that happened is when California was first settled, most of the farm goods and the dairy cows were around San Jose, and the San Francisco was a big city, and that's where people were, so they grew all their food and cows over there. And the same thing, Sacramento, they had certain areas down here a little bit where they got their milk. Well, when that Bay Area grew, they all moved over here. And in the 1910s and 20s, you can still see on the west side when you drive down, and you see the remnants, I guess you'd say, of the little local family dairy. Had a little farm, had a house, they had maybe 20 cows. Well, they moved over there in part because it was close to the Bay Area, and they sold the Bay Area, but also because it was sandy ground. And you think about the wintertime around here when we get a lot of rain, what it's like with the cows walking around out there. They loved it out there because that water was just so right into the ground. Well, guess what it took along with it is all the nitrate that the areas had created through their corrals and through the cow and so on. Up until again in the 70s, probably the 80s, that was an unregulated industry. Their waste was allowed to be put on fields, the manure, and put on the surrounding fields at levels more than any crop that was grown in that ground could use as a crop nutrient. So there was always huge amount of excess nitrates. So what we're starting to find in the valley as we study the accumulation is that the heavy dairy areas, which is pretty much, of course, 99, well, you all know better than not, the heavy dairy areas, we have really high nitrate levels. Also the areas where we farm. So farming has started using commercial nitrogen fertilizers in the 1960s. Green Revolution, when that happened, that's part of what caused that, is they had commercial nitrogen fertilizers. Well, when the university started studying them, what they did is they say, I grow corn, so let's figure out what's the optimum amount to put on to get the optimum yields. So they put on 50 pounds an acre, 100 pounds, 200 pounds, 300 pounds. And there'd be a curve that would say, that's about 300 pounds, you're not doing any good, don't put it on anymore. But because fertilizer was so cheap, there was a lot of people that put on 300 pounds because that showed the maximum yield, but you didn't always get the maximum yield. So any excess fertilizer on that crop that the crop didn't use then became nitrate and leached into groundwater. So I'm exaggerating, but I'm just making the point that the contribution that has caused this red area, nitrate, has been human sewage, non-treated, over early time agriculture and dairies. So that's the main contributors. And then there's food processors and other industries that are somewhat minor, said composting, those are being paid attention to now, composting facilities. But really, this has happened over time because of human, what do they call it?
Go to the very top, you can click next also.
Okay. Pardon me. I'm slow to learn.
So question, the Bay Area, like San Jose or Morgan Hill area, it used to be heavy farming.
Yeah.
All the orchards are gone now. So are there nitrate levels normal now or do they?
They have a very thick clay layer there because of the bay over time. Those are silt soils and their aquifer, they have a pretty good aquifer around Gilroy, Morgan Hill in that area, but San Jose, they don't have good groundwater aquifers. They used, the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir really helps for both in the Bay Area around the 40s and 50s. And, taking that pipeline over there, they really don't have as high pressure. So the water board realized this is happening over time. There was a process that was put together, a regulatory quasi industry. Everybody that discharges nitrates was around the table in a process called CV salts. And as an acronym for a long-term about salinity and long-term sustainability. But it started out looking at salts because we have a similar problem in salt accumulation. About 10 years ago, it got steered into the nitrate issue because the environmental justice community and others came up and said, look, salt's bad, it's going to happen, but right now we have an acute problem with nitrate accumulation, especially in the disadvantaged communities, with their drinking water supplies being contaminated with nitrate. So in 2020, the regional board adopted a new program out of this CV salt stakeholder process called the Nitrate Control Program. It applies to all the industries that have permits. And fast forwarding now to current. All those discharges of nitrate are now regulated up to here. We have fertilizer reporting in irrigated ag. The dairies have to line their ponds. There's a lot of things that they have to do now to control nitrate. Cities, their wastewater treatment plants, state of the art in the processes that they have. Food process, everybody is regulated. So the nitrate control program is targeted at them. And for them to comply with this program, the program has 3 goals. One of them is to provide safe drinking water. The industries pay for safe drinking water for all these rural residences that these wells have been impacted by nitrate. And that is, we have to provide, I'll tell you more in detail later, but we have to do well testing and we have to provide them safe drinking water, bottled water, and then eventually treatment. And then all these industries that I showed you, we have to show to the water board that we're reducing our impact of nitrate on groundwater. They have the permit programs and such that we're doing. And then over time, we have to restore the groundwater aquifer for the next 100 years, 50-year timeline. They are expecting these industries to work to help restore this groundwater quality where it's reasonable impact. So the program has these 3 goals, and as part of the program, all of us as dischargers had the program had 2 choices. They said you can either join path A is you can comply on your own. Your wastewater treatment plan can show we're not discharging nitrates. All of our plume has never affected anybody around us. If they have, we'll provide you drinking water, and or you can go in the management zone approach, which is you take a groundwater basin and all the discharges in that basin can collectively come together and figure out a way to do the well testing, supply the water, and come up with long-term solutions for the nitrate contamination. So they call that 2 pathways. The management zone approach had some deadlines to, a report we had to do initially, March 8, 2021, we had to write this voluminous, cost us $250,000, more than that, to write these programs with hydrogeologists and engineers. We submitted these plans, and in the plan we had to have an early action, as in when are you going to start testing wells, when are you going to start getting water out. We rolled out our program on May 8th, 2021. So we're coming on our 2nd year anniversary of this program. So the 2 things that we have to do as a requirement, just the 30,000 foot, is we got to get water out fast. We had we called it the interim or emergency water, and promote this program to everyone on individual wells in our basins. And then we got to come up with plans, what's called long-term solutions. So the water board has said, you can't just give them bottled water and call it good, industry. You got to connect them to cities with clean water. You got to give them treatment. You got to do something to fix what you have caused in the aquifer. So these 2 big major efforts are required. This long-term solution plan, our organization, others that have to comply with us, and are starting to write that plan this year. And then we had the early plan, the interim plan was already written and produced. So backing up again, when CV Salts was together, what we did and paid for, and the state helped pay for, is we took groundwater monitoring data for the last 10 years, some in some areas 20 years, and identify where's the worst of the worst. We're in the Central Valley with the worst problems with nitrate contamination. Lucky us, we're right in the middle of 1 of 6 of the priority areas that had to fall into this immediate implementation of the nitrate control program. There's the priority 2 basins, which we're pretty much surrounded by, in it, that will get a notice to comply. All the same industries will get a notice to comply at the end of this year, and then they roll into what I'm going to be talking about that we're doing already. And then the priority 3, the areas in green, the water board will get to them someday, but they're not in the big. They got their hands full with priority 1 and priority 2. So the program kicked off, as I mentioned, in May 7, 2021. We had to submit these plans. We had to go through a lot of different things. The basins you see listed on the right, Modesto, Turlock, Chowchilla is right at the border of the 2 counties, Merced and Madera. Kings is a Fresno, and Fresno, the city of Fresno is the center of the Kings groundwater basin. Then the Comia is kind of out by Visalia, the Visalia area from 99. And then Truly is like around Tulare in that area. So that map that you saw earlier, that's the priority basins, 6 management zones that were formed similar to what we did here in Modesto. So those programs have rolled out. So the priority 2 basins are going to get their letter from the water board at the end of this year. And those basins are going to be Merced County, a Merced groundwater basin. It doesn't follow county lines, it follows groundwater basin lines. So Merced Basin, and then to our west, Delta Mendota, which is more or less westly to Los Banos and the river to Interstate 5. That's going to be the Delta Mendota Basin. And then East San Joaquin Basin is the Stanislaus River to Stockton. So that's segmented by the river. So those programs, they're going to, the dischargers in those basins are going to be located or contacted by the regional water and told that we have to do the same thing. So Valley Water, where did we come from? So all of the industries got together and everybody tried to hand this responsibility to somebody, and everybody said, I don't want it. We don't want to do this. It's too much, and it involves all the industries. So we in this area formed mostly the agriculture and dairy, because we're the biggest footprint in the area. We decided let's form a new nonprofit, 501c3, call it Valley Water Collaborative, create a mission, give the ability for us to pay fees to support the budget, our annual budget that we're going to need to develop or create every year and fund. And it's averaging now about 1.2 million. I think over 3 years, we're in the 1 to 1.5 million range. So every year we're assessing ourselves to pay for this budget. So what we're doing is we're implementing programs that provide access to safe drinking water, which is one of the goals of the nitrate control program. And then we have to protect and enhance the quality of groundwater used for drinking water. So we're a very flat, simple organization. We have the board of directors, executive director, and our staff, and then we represent 3 basins. So each of the basins are, in the water board's eyes, are considered a unique entity, management zone. So we have 2 management zones currently that we're preparing reports for, and then we're very likely going to have the Merced Basin. We're also talking to the Delta Mendota Basin and the East San Joaquin. We may all join this Valley Water Collaborative to implement the nitrate control program. And the reason that the argument, if you will, that we use to do that is economies of scale. Why do we need bureaucracies in each one of these basins? Executive director, staff, you can imagine you guys are involved in business. Why, when we can manage something centrally, and it's heavy lift on one hand, but on the other hand, it's pretty straightforward. Well testing, deliver water, create reports, and help industry implement the nitrate control program. So we're looking now at, you for sure have Modesto Turlock. Merced is for sure. They've already committed the dairy and irrigated ag, and we got to work with the cities down there after they get their letter. And then these other basins will likely be members over time. So the makeup of our board is 12 board seats, and you can see the split there with a number of seats each of those industry segments get.
I don't know if
Oh, don't touch it. That'd be neat. Well, you missed one of the cities, but anyway, all the cities are in the group.
Are the irrigation districts also involved with us doing the interlock irrigation?
They don't, as far as permit holders, they don't discharge nitrate. That's, so we work with them, you know, they're on the boards of these organizations, but as far as the participants, let me say it nicely, the people who are boxed into a corner that can't say no have a waste discharge permit. And those entities don't have waste discharge permits. They own some irrigated land and they're members through the Irrigated Lands Coalition program. But as far as them as dischargers, they're not required to be in it. And you can imagine going to their board and say, hey, you want to volunteer to be in this? They're going to say, yeah, get out of here. I have no interest. And they don't have interest in participating, frankly. They're helping us out. But, you know, you can imagine with all the GSA, groundwater sustainability authorities now, they got plenty of it. Anyway, so we're likely going to expand our board once we get more membership. So the other thing that we had to do was a tough sell, and it continues to be tough, is how are we going to pay for this thing? Who needs to pay the most? And how are we going to pay, you know, fund $1 million budget? So because we had no real objective data to say, well, you guys discharge 20 million gallons per day of nitrate and you're 50 million or whatever metric you use, we said, let's do a subjective breakdown of the pie. How are we going to pay for that budget? Raise the money each year. And we started out with irrigated ag. We are now currently irrigated ag is 80% of the budget. You see the blue and the brown. And then the other industries are 20%. And each of those, I don't know if you can see those, but 7.5% is for the POW in the cities, 3% is for poultry, 7% is for the wine and food processor industry. So what we're going to do this year, though, starting this year, it may take a year or two, is try to do an objective analysis of what each of those segments actually is contributing to groundwater nitrate. And that's going to take some pretty expensive modeling and other things to figure out how, you know, what is the footprint of all of our industries individually. And it's mind-boggling to even think about how you're going to do all the farms, how you're going to do all the dairies, how, you know, all these little cities, and figure out what's their relative impact. Because those of you that work in municipalities or government know the bosses, if you will, are talking to the guy that runs wastewater treatment plant. And they're saying, you got 7%. Well, who said it's 7? Shouldn't it be 5 or 2 or 1? Or how'd you come up with that? So I've had some conversations selling that. And I say it's subjective. That we had to get started. We had to raise money. We don't want to argue about that. So it may change these percentages after we get that objective allocation of end contributions, we call it. Then we will readjust this. But this is working. It's in the 3rd year of raising funds. And this is a long-term program. I have people ask me, so when's the end of it? And I say never. It's never going to be over. This is the start of something that's going to be in place forever. What we have, though, in the interim or short term is we have milestones that we have to fill. So one thing, important thing I didn't mention, the reason the industry has cooperated as they have is when the regional board adopted the nitrate control program, they said, you currently have a deadline of 2026 to meet 10 milligrams per liter below the root zone or out of your facilities. If you don't meet it, then you're in violation of the state water code. What we swap them for is we'll do this program and we get 30 years to meet the standard. So we now have a 30-year extension to our nitrate deadline to meet in groundwater discharges. However, over this period of time and every 5 years, we got to show the progress our industries are making in each of these areas. We can't just say, oh, good, 30 years, check with me in 30 years. They would throw away this exception immediately if we don't show progress. So anyway, over time, we had this early action plan that was developed in 2022. Then we're working on a long-term management zone implementation plan that's going to be probably the end of this year. And then over time, the emergency water is going to phase out, and then the red line, and then the other long-term solutions will start kicking in. So the point of this is that we got a lot of work, and it's going to be around. You youngsters are going to be my age by the time we're already on those groups. And so anyway, this just kind of illustrates that we had to notice comply, that we had to do this $250,000 plan. We began the implementation. We're working on that red box right there. Then once that plan's in place, then we have to start working with all the various stakeholders and water industries, to figure out how to do long-term solutions to drinking water. So we started our program almost two years ago. And what our first step was, who are we going to contact? So in that first plan, what our hydrogeologists had to do through state public records is figure out where are all these wells. And they use various sources of information to come up with the data that showed in these two basins, there's about 5,000 wells, 4,000 wells that are probably contaminated. We created mailing lists, Valley Water Collaborative went through, created mailing lists, and even papering their mailboxes with postcards for the last 2 years. So far, we've got almost 1,000 applications, 900 applications. We got about 170 that weren't eligible, meaning I live in Modesto, my water tastes terrible. Can I get bottled water? Oh, sorry, it's safe. It may not taste that great, but it's still safe. And we had people that were in these other basins, so they're not eligible. We sent 460 applications to our lab in Turlock, geoanalytical professional lab, ELAB certified, which is an acronym that's, I'm not sure what it is, but it means you can't, it's not just any lab and they have to follow good quality practices. 340 residents receiving bottled water, and then 10 of those we have started to convert to point of use treatment, point of use, RO systems essentially. So long-term solutions for a lot of these are going to be RO because it's just too remote to run a pipeline from Modesto out to 5 houses that are, $1 million a mile for pipeline these days. It's going to be POU that'll likely be long-term solutions. So we're confirming what we saw in the map at the beginning. There's a lot of nitrate contamination in our groundwater basins. So of our well results that we've gotten so far, we've had 70% are exceeding the nitrate standard. 10% fall in that. If you remember that first slide, it was 2 to 10 and then 10 to above. So if there's 7 to 10, the results are 7 to 10, we retest them in a year. So 10% of them we're going to retest. We actually have started retesting some of them. And then that 70% is the exceedances, 22% don't have nitrate exceedances. So just to give you statistics type, so we have 70% exceedances, but when you do the box and whisker plot of the data, most of them, I have a circle where 10 would be, the standard would be, so you see in the lower left, well, I'll just point. So this is where 10 is. So most of our results are kind of in this area. We have what are called whiskers. The highest we found is 110. Which is 11 times the standard, but most of them are, the majority of them are in the range. 24 is about the peak. Still, it's an exceedance.
Are these farm sites?
These are not, no, most of them are just the 1 acre. You think about the edges of town. That's the majority of the area. It's 99. You have all these developments, the 1 acre plots. Most of the farming people, I wear another hat. I work for the East San Joaquin Water Coalition. The group, the irrigated ag that's paying for this. And when we get members call, I tell them, and at least I have them to this point, if you can afford to do your testing and provide the water, it's better to do it that way than all of our 250,000 acres in these places. All you guys want to come and get free water and well testing, you're $2 an acre, you're paying now going to be $10 an acre. So farms don't apply for this program. We never say no, though. We probably have a dozen little, 10 acre grandma's living out in the house, you know what to do, and that. So we're doing those. We had a corporate farm call us that I knew there's no way they had 100 wells or something like this. You guys don't do that. So that's my unofficial answer to your whether there's farms. There's not very many. There's some.
Yeah, but the farms are the ones that are putting the liquid nitrogen.
And they're the ones that are paying for it. Yeah, so you're right. I mean, they're using fertilizer, some too much.
Are they going to be willing to stop with the liquid nitrate?
Well, irrigated agriculture has their own program. It's looking at the applied fertilizer versus what the crop's taking on. They have to report every year when they apply. And there's what's called the crop nitrogen coefficient for almonds, for all these crops. It says, for example, it takes 100 pounds of nitrogen fertilizer over the year to make 1,000 pounds of nut meats. So we send a report back to them that says, you put on twice as much as the crop took off. And if you don't correct that in 3 years, you're gonna go to the water. So there's already a program in place that is starting to show you as a grower, I got 2,500 pounds of almonds. So that should be 150, 250 pounds. Maybe you put on 300, you're an outlier. You're gonna get some focus on you and get that back in balance. So, you know, the short answer, no, they can't. They're not restricted from using liquid nitrogen, but they have to show that they're using it responsibly.
Is there any studies that compost or manure stays more at the root level versus liquid nitrate just going through?
No, yes, there has been studies, and the tricky part about compost and manure is that I'll do my, again, you're back in class, so there's a release curve of fertilizers. It's dependent on temperature, microbial action. Commercial fertilizer, you put it on, you know, if it's 70 degrees in 10 days, that plant's going to take it up. With manure and compost, it has to go through a microbial process to turn the ammonium into nitrate, which the plants take up. That is weather dependent, temperature dependent, moisture dependent, soil type dependent. So when you put it on, you put compost on right now, it may be ready to be used by the tree when that tree's using it. It may not be. It may release then in November when you're not needing it. So you can actually have, if you don't do it right, you can reach more nitrate from manure compost than you can from commercial fertilizer. Because it's a guess. It's and really with compost, the rule of thumb that we tell growers is the first year you put it in, 50% is going to be available. The next year is 30%, and then the following year is 20% of that total you put on. Say you put on 10 ton, so 50% of that 10 ton is going to break down and be available for the plant. Year 2, the remaining 30%, and then the last 20% in 3 years. Because it takes a long time for that organic material to break down and be available. And then that's all dependent on temperature, moisture, soil type, and all those things. So the short answer is it's a wild guess that you're going to be polluting less if you do that than if you use commercial fertilizer. So there's, it's complicated. It's really, because the organic guys have come up to us and say, hey, we ought to have exemption. And we say, okay, do the studies. Remember, the studies are not going to back you up because what it's going to say is it's not as controllable as commercial. Now you can pollute a whole lot easier with commercial because you have liquids or whatever, you put so much more on so much easily. But the compost and manure is really kind of unpredictable. It's still good for soil health and for every other reason that you use those.
Just the water, you know, like right now we're in a rainy season. Has that changed the levels because of water tables going up and down?
It's kind of too early to tell, but in principle, yes. So I love using this because it's so ridiculous. The solution to dilution, that's good. You all know what I'm trying to say. Solution to pollution is dilution. And with nitrates in the groundwater, the only real practical way to solve that problem is put more fresh water in the aquifer.
So our drought years nitrate testing.
Theoretically, there's not, it's so slow moving. Groundwater, groundwater moves really slow. The stuff in the profile moves really slow. So it's really, you can do modeling. I'm sure models can tell you what you want them to tell you, but it's really hard to say for sure. I've thought the same thing, but I asked these hydrogeologists that if you pump more out of the groundwater, does that make the nitrate higher? And that doesn't make sense because your pump's down there pumping. It's not pumping out clean water and leaving nitrate water. It's pulling out everything that's where the pump is perforated. So to say, because we overpump, the nitrates are higher, not necessarily. There's less dilution, yes, from fresh water, from rain and rivers and all that. But as far as the action of pumping, there's no real solid evidence that when you take more out and you're putting in the groundwater, you're making higher nitrates. You're just getting less dilution more so than pumping. Pumping's got, that's its own problem, and over pumping not bad. Yeah, it gets complicated. The other really hard thing, again, back to your advanced program, we started sampling surface water in 2004, and that was easy. Yes, you could take a sample. This guy used that product up there. That's where it's coming from. But groundwater with the soil, 50 feet of soil, and the water moves, and it's really difficult to say this caused that with groundwater. Okay, one thing we were able to do recently, it's been a year already, is the state water board itself. Now, we deal with the regional water board, so the state water board, the guys from all the money, were watching our program. And in the first year, we got hundreds of applications that said, hey, would you guys, if we funded you, like to start testing for the other contaminants that aren't the fault of agriculture? So we worked out a deal with them, East Valley Water, got a $5.5 million grant to add the other common groundwater contaminants, the biggest ones being arsenic, uranium, 1,2,3-T, and EDB, DVCP, and all the, the alphabet soup that are found from legacy pesticides. So we started the grant, spending the grant a year ago, January. It's a 4-year grant, and they pay for half of our outreach, all of our contacting of people and such. 50% of that, and based on what's found in the water, they pay a percentage of the administration for that. So we started sampling for all that fun stuff not long ago. And I always ask in a meeting when I don't show this, is guess what is the highest contaminant in groundwater? And nobody ever guesses this, but it's uranium. We have more uranium hits in our testing of wells than any other contaminant. Arsenic you see is down at 7%. Almost half of our wells have some levels of uranium. And the reason for that is the Sierra Nevada has uranium mines, and they have uranium in those mountains. So over the millennia, over the millions of years of the erosion of the Sierra Nevadas, they're embedded in our soils down at, who knows what, probably at not high levels, but our ability to sample right now is so crazy. They can see part per trillion in the water. So it's, they see it, but whether it's okay is not certain. Well, they say, anyway, I won't even go there. I don't know anything about it. I'm instructed to not say anything about the contaminants. Okay? Talk to the state. Talk to the state and the county. Where's the county?
Well, so where we're at, we're near Patterson, and our well is non-potable because of the rain.
Yeah.
So we're trying to protect water that we can't even drink.
Well, and so the reason why we don't, they're coming in, they pay for all that sampling, all that work. That's their deal. That's a state deal. Agriculture doesn't apply uranium. We don't throw arsenic on our bugs. They used to back in the way old days, 50, 70, 80 years ago. But was that art? No, it was lead that they used. Anyway. So these are not caused by agriculture activities. So that's why the state handles it. And that's why we're doing it only, not because that's now agriculture industry's problem or the cities to try to solve this. But the state is providing the free bottle water, long-term treatment if you're in a disadvantaged community and you have an income level. If you're above that, then they don't provide any funding. They do pay for free testing and free bottled water if you're in a mapped area. It's a disadvantaged community, which most of our region is considered based on population and other things. And then uranium, the good news about uranium is only a few wells are just really hot. So 20 is your standard, is a, whatever that means, 10 is the standard here. So, some of them are up in the 20s, but the really super high ones that we have a drinking water person from Ceres on, and they said, it's not as bad as I thought. There's only a handful of wells that are really in bad shape. Class is almost over. Okay, then 1, 2, 3 TCP, that's the other one that's causing a lot of problems. We're at really low levels. I mean, you see that 0.05. We have one well so far that's above the exceeds. And the others are just super small amounts. But that's what they can measure. Arsenic, same thing. Standard is 10. We only have one that's above. We're finding it. I guess that's the point. So our application process, I'll run through it real quick. We just have a very thorough application process. We have GIS mapping to make sure they're in the area. When a person applies, we usually get the guys out, the well testers out within a week or 2 weeks at the most. At the beginning, it was long, and now we're doing good. We get the results. Nitrate anyway in 10 to 14 days. All those other contaminants, they take a month, sometimes 2 months, because they have to be shipped off to other labs. So we have a database system that's awesome. We found a consultant that did the Ceres drinking water software to manage their drinking water system. So we know where every applicant is, every bottle of water goes, how many gallons, what their address is, all their information we have, we're capturing. We're also doing some other things. We use Ready Refresh as our bottled water provider. this was way more difficult than you could possibly imagine. They're doing good now. And I take this out because they stole this. They have another company that bought them out, but they're the ones that are doing our deliveries. And then curious, we've been since the beginning of 22, we started tracking people, hearing about our program. And so postcards and hearing from their neighbors is the top combined two. But we've also got lots of applications and some publicity that we've done. We've got 9 articles so far. We've been advertising on a Spanish-speaking radio station, and then we had a couple of stories that we gin up. And then the TV, we got some TV coverage. So my dark skeleton in my closet, I don't mention any people, but I used to be in public relations and in journalism, so I know how to get into the newspaper. I'll leave it at that. And then the other thing that we did that Jesus pulled off is we did a high school display contest about a year ago. We got an article on this in the B in his series. But anyway, we came up with an idea because poor Jesus has to go to these tabling events over at the farmer's market. And I went to some of the first ones. We had a poster and people would look at it and you couldn't even get them to look. So we came up with this idea. These kids made these awesome displays. We paid them. We had a good prize for them. It was $2,000 prize, and we came up with some. You can see there they were great. So Jesus has those at all of his, all of his tabling events that he does. We're going to do another one this year. Then we had a company that makes a very unique water supply system. I guess you call it. It looks like solar panels. It takes humidity out of the air, condenses it, and it turns it into drinking water. Wow. We have this pilot program that's a residence outside of Ceres, and it works. It's clean water. It's so pure that they have to run the water through a mineral cartridge to get some minerals back in the water because it's essentially distilled water, and it works too. It's yeah, I don't know much more to say about it, but it works. But anyway, we got that story out of that kid in the newspapers. So we got a lot more publicity on that. We've been doing many postcard mailings. We're trying different layouts to try to get people to respond, and we get a pretty good response. And then Jesus and Ezra Clausen, my son, are out tabling farmers markets and learning a lot about human nature. Especially now, they're also starting canvassing. They say canvassing. No, I didn't. But anyway, they're starting canvassing. You guys have done what, 500 households by now? So we started in August, knocking on doors, leaving flyers.
I think 700.
700 households, because there's a lot of pressure on us to do this door to door, and it's working okay. It's just we got bit once by a dog, so that. No, it's been working out really well. They get all, as you can imagine, all sorts of responses. But one thing we've learned is talking people into free water and free testing is really hard. It is amazingly hard to get people to agree to test. And then because of our program, we have to tell them their data is going on a state database called GeoTrack. So if we test your well, your results going on GeoTrack. It's like, yeah, get out of here. I'm not even, we get a lot of people that way that won't do that. They won't sign up. Anything to do with the government. And we're not government, but we're implementing a program. So we're going to do, just to let you know, we're going to do a resource fair on May 6th, kind of scheduled around Cinco de Mayo, some local elementary or high school in this area. We'll have a press conference. I got lines to all the state board and the regional board members, probably get them to come show up and do another article in the paper and get some more press coverage. I think, yeah, and then, we're going to continue the Jesus and Ezra out doing farmers market, swap meets, food banks, distribute the flyer. My ask for you all is, Jesus is my man. If you got ways for us to get events, get our flyers out, let Jesus know we're on it. Because seriously, we have got to blanket. Part of our back to this whole state board's requirement, we have got to show that we are trying to make sure people have safe drinking water. End of story. They're taking no excuses. This line I was telling you about, they don't want to cooperate. That's not an answer to them. So I don't know. We still got to get around that. But Anyway, any ideas you have or references or things that I could come give presentations to meetings and groups. I promise I don't always give this long of a lecture, but I have an hour, so. So you all know more about water. And that's all of our contact info. And the PowerPoint is, you can share it with this group too, I guess, on your main list. Anybody wants to use it or at any time. And great.
Yeah, question.
Sure, any questions too?
So I know that the subwater basin groups have to have wells, have to have them tested and monitor all those. Are you guys able to save by sharing data together? Because they're having the same wells or, you know.
Well, we're sharing tricks of the trade, if you will, on how we're getting applications, what we're doing. We're trying to learn, learn from everybody else's mistakes. Because it's all new. I mean, there's nothing like this out there that we can say, how did you do this and get success? I mean, it's really from the ground up. But yeah, we're collaborating as much as. In fact, we have all the model and all the management zones about that very thing. We have to report all of our results to the regional board to let them know what we're doing on a monthly basis.
More questions? Ladies and gentlemen, that's what we want for a green team meeting. That was fantastic.
And we have some flyers. Jesus brought some of our information. So we'll pass those around.
Fantastic. I love that. I learned a lot and I appreciate that. That's great. Thank you very much. So we're up on the hour. Real quick, what we do at the end of our meetings is we turn the floor over to you if you would like. We call them 30-second commercials. If I was giving you one, I would say that I'm Linden Coffee with American Recycling. We recycle cardboard, metal, plastic, and paper. Give me a call if you need something. So that's my 30 seconds right there. So if anybody has that, or just a general announcement of things going on, go ahead. I'll turn it over to you.
Modesto has Earth Day in the park at Reseda, so that's April 22nd. You guys, you'd be welcome to come.
That'd be perfect.
We sent our application.
Okay.
Yeah, we're looking for.
These guys are on it. We're getting that. There's a kind of little newspaper that has community events that are in the libraries and such. We've been searching all those.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so Mike Meridian, my company's Peace of Mind Pest Control. We do pest control for residential, commercial. Actually, we take care of Tribwood.
Oh, nice.
Fantastic. Thank you. Anybody else?
Gavin Klein, Congressman John DeWarte. I have my cards with me, so if you guys ever have any questions for the congressman or office, always feel free to reach out. Our office is going to be in Turlock, downtown Turlock. So if you guys have any questions, always feel free to reach out to us.
Awesome.
Love to get a card from you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And thanks for attending and remember us every month.
I'll just throw in addition to these monthly Stanislaus Green Team meetings, we are the county provider of the California Green Business Network Stanislaus program. We will go out in the community. We will work with business of any industry to help them get green certified, which the biggest benefit of that is it throws you on a state level referral website. George can attest to that. They've grown some energy from the process. Every industry has its own checklist, so you can't say, hey, Jolene, what's on there? I don't know, you have to register. That's what opens up your checklist. It doesn't commit you to it. It's a free service that we provide to the business community, whether or not they're a chamber member. But we are, in addition to wanting to get more businesses on the program and through the process, we're looking for funding partners to help us because this is on staff time. I have a very small grant that helps offset some of Jolene's time. She lives and breathes green now. It's kind of becoming consuming her, but we're looking for funding partners to help us carry that program to the next level.
Fantastic. Anyone else? Yeah, go.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself. Go for it.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good.
From a different meeting, but Nick DeCuslian with the Board of Supervisors office and Supervisor Manny Graywall. Our office is right over there on the 6th floor. So if you need anything, I have my card with me or business ring.
Jolene's the person probably to get the card to and get you on the monthly emails or weekly, I should say, to speak about our upcoming green teams. The next one is March 16th, by the way. So put that on your calendar. Okay. Anybody else?
I'm trying to sorry. Yeah.
George, yeah. Wrap it up, George.
George Isaac, I'm the sales director for Repsco. We're the leading manufacturer of 100% recycled plastic slip sheets in the country. It's a viable alternative to wood pellets and warehouse production. Obviously, we're very much involved in recycling and sustainability. Trish mentioned, we're certified California Green Business. Keep in mind, the biggest California is probably only like 5,000 companies in the entire state that are being certified. So I would urge you to take a look at it.